Hello. Um, my name's Ali Nanius, and I'm going to talk about my experience with glute pain brought on by stenosis of the back, in particular the lower lumbar. Now, first, a little bit about how it started. And it started basically in maybe summer of 2020 during the COVID thing, where I was doing more running and walking. And as I gradually, due to knee pain, faced running out and walk more, I noticed glute pain was and it's kind of a stabbing pain. Started maybe 3 or 4 miles into the walk. Then over time, it came on in 1 or 2 miles. Then over time, it got to the point where it was hurting within the first mile. I just, by the time of the summer of 2021 came along, I was tired of it, and I decided to get some physical therapy, thinking it was piriformis pain, and that's where it was, in the left glute. And the physical therapist could feel knots in the glute, and they sort of diagnosed it being that. And the stretches and the exercises I learned helped, but I never got to the point where I could even make a mile without stopping for pain. I laid off, tried to start, and by February of 2022, I could not even walk a quarter mile without ice pick in the glute sort of pain. And that's why I want to stress right there. I went to the walk-in clinic at Midwest Orthopedic and got a proper diagnosis from Dr. Lilly, one of the spine doctors there. And this is what showed up. And I'm going to go to share screen here so you can see some of this. And let's get rid of it. Let's do this. I am using Zoom for this recording. And this is what the x-ray looked like right there. He told me that you look better than your back would indicate. There's my S1 and there's my L5. You can see how tilted this is and how the disc spacing, which should look like this, kind of looked like that. Now, to tell you where I ended up, I after getting the proper diagnosis and then went back to physical therapy for my lower lumbar as opposed to my piriformis. And I went to physical therapy services in Allen Road in Peoria. They were wonderful. Their exercises, which I do to this day, got me started. I gradually was able to walk a mile at a time, maybe a mile and a quarter. And you can see over the months, this is my miles per month I was able to walk. Right around in June, because I was still struggling to walk a little bit more than a mile without the pain coming on. Uh, was referred to a spinal surgeon, Dr. O'Leary, and he was really cool. He tested me, found out that, he told me you don't need surgery, but he did prescribe one spinal injection, which I got in June. That's around here. And then after that, I had a follow up in August, and he said, well, I don't know if the injections are doing you any good. Just keep on with the physical therapy and activity management. And as you can see, the miles I was able to walk without pain grew quite nicely. And then in the next year, well, I did have a regression in February 2023, but that was due to COVID. And I was able to get back to 100 plus miles a month. And typically now I walk between 130 and 150 miles in a month. Most of the miles, I'd say about 2/3 of the miles are a deliberate exercise pace, 13:30 to 15 minutes a mile. And some of it is about a third of it is commuter walks over lunch, where I maybe just walk to lunch, but I take the long way, walk a couple of miles at a 17, 18, 16-minute pace. So that's where I am right now. And so I want to share a little bit of how I got there. Okay. So So, okay, here's, and I'll go back to sharing the screen in just a little bit. So how I got there. I basically do a 20 to 30 minute physical therapy routine every day. That's important. I lost weight. At the time I went in, the first time to see the doctor, I was about 206 pounds. I'm 6 foot tall. I now weigh about 186 pounds. And why that really matters, I think, is I carry, when I gain weight, I tend to carry a lot of it in my midsection. And I think that extra stuff sort of pulls the spine in a wrong way. I've learned how to brace myself when I walk, learn how to tilt the pelvis up forward a little bit. I also learned how to do the hard easy system. Like, for example, if I want to power walk a 5K and it takes me between 33 and 35 minutes to do, I take a couple of easy days afterward. Yeah, if I want to go long, and my longest since this happened has been 8 to 10 miles, but I don't do that very often. I cut back, for the next couple of days. A typical exercise walk for me is between 5K and 5 miles. Occasionally, I go a little longer. The other thing I want to stress, though, is I have had some lifestyle adjustments, which I'll mention. Losing weight is one of them. And I've had some weight room adjustments that I want to talk about because I do lift weights. So let's just take a look at that. First of all, as far as the lifestyle adjustments, I have this everlasting comfort cushion. I have one for the couch, one for my office chair at work, and one for the office chair that I'm sitting here. Now, I used to drag this one to baseball games, but I don't anymore. But I do think it helps. It puts my pelvis in a good position. And because I'm a college instructor, uh, at cases where I'm using my laptop to teach, bending forward or sitting down for a class is no good. I got my university allowed me to buy one of these. It's a desktop extender, and it's a standing desk extender. I took those little wheels off and I use it just flat. And it really is a back saver because I can stand upright and tilt my pelvis forward into a good position for me. So those are a couple of lifestyle adjustments. The other thing I do is let's say if I want to change a light bulb, I use a step ladder rather than a step stool. I go up higher than I used to want to do. And I try to keep my hands from extending all the way up like this. The higher up I can get and the less extension I can get in my back, the better it is. Now, the reason for that, as I didn't go over, you can see how my S1 is tilted so far forward, and you can see my L5 is slipped forward. Now, when Dr. Lilly first saw this, he diagnosed me with degenerative disc disease. But when I got an MRI, and it's probably kind of small to read here, it was grade 1 anterior lolisthesis or spondylolisthesis. That's a slip forward vertebra due to a chronic pars defect. The pars are the little bones on the back, and like many people who wrestled and played football, I probably gave myself a pars fracture young, and over time that L5 managed to slip forward. And it said the disc is protruding a little bit, and moderate bilateral foraminal stenosis. And now what that basically means, my understanding, and I'm a layperson, is that the nerve roots that come out of the bottom, that's somewhat impinged. And it causes tingling feet, and that cause the glute pain. I have some of my L4, L5, mild bilateral foraminal stenosis, so it's not as, instead of moderate, it's mild. And what mild means is that there's no loss of motor function. The moderate means that, to give you an idea, when I do certain stretches, the strength in my left leg actually goes up. So when it's at its worst, it causes a slight degradation of my leg strength. And when I try to stand on my left leg, I balance much easier on my right. And then I have a mild, slight nerve impingement L4, L3, L2, L3, mild descending nerve impingement, and if between L1 and L2, mild stenosis with no impingement. So that's what's going on right there. So it's basically spondylolisthesis. The surgeon said I did not need surgery at this time. He intimated that I probably would in the future, but it's better to extend my non-surgery part as long as I can. As you can see, I'm walking quite a bit. The other thing I want to talk about is my weightlifting adjustments. I do lift, and I found this website, which I'll put a link to. It's actually a YouTube channel, and it's Dr. Remy, and he has a bunch of weightlifting modifications, which I found very, very useful. I'll just describe what they are. One, on the bench press right here, I do my bench presses with my feet up on a chair. I try keeping my feet up, but I have a short bench, so I couldn't put my feet on the bench. But I got a little folding chair and put it on the side of on the end of the bench, and that tends to work. That means I take my leg drive out, and it costs me about 10, 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds of strength. But if I'm careful and don't arch, and I have to be careful not to press my glutes in when I'm trying to get that last rep, I don't get any radiating pain. No radiating pain when I bench, and that's a real plus. The other advice he gave is to sort of bring the arms in a little bit because of the arms, the way he describes it, the arms are out. That tends to put pressure on your lower back. So I do take the leg drive out. The second thing is the pull-ups. I don't do the wide grip pull-ups anymore. I do change my grips. I do some like this, and a few sets of mixed grips like this and like this. And I keep my knees in front of me and keep my legs bent. Now that does produce a very slight kip, a little bit of upward momentum. So I compensate by doing, a lot of repetitions. I don't kick wildly. I try to keep it very, very mild because my spine doesn't like wild things. But what I don't want is I don't want my spine going into extension. I don't want it to arch like this. I want to keep a very neutral back. And to do that, I do have to curl up my knees a little bit. And again, it does induce a very, very mild kip. As far as the overhead press, I've had to delete those. I mean, I'm sure if you worked hard, you can probably keep a neutral back, but I found it was better for me to do a high incline. I have one of those incline benches, and rather than having it straight up, and rather than have it as a typical incline, I have it at the next level where I'm leaning back just a little. And I have my feet up on stools. I got these bariatric footstools that I use for step ups and stuff. That really takes the pressure off of my back. So, and then the other thing I do, because I have a hard time working my legs and not torture my back, I do a trap bar deadlift. Now, what I found that I use a trap bar instead of a barbell, so I have the arms at the side. I'm learning to, when I do my setup, I put tension in the bar by as soon as I bend down and grab, I make sure I brace by breathing into my weight belt, forming a brace there. And then I drop my hips just a little bit to get a nice solid spine, and then try to really treat it almost like a leg press. I don't squat my deadlifts up, but I do that. And my legs are usually quivering after those. When I've tried belt squats or when I tried goblet squats where you hold the bar here, I think I let my ego get in the way and I try to go too far down and I start compensating at the lower ranges. I have to accept that if I'm going to do any kind of a squat, I have to go only as far down as I can go without compensating. And that might mean a half squat or a 3/4 squat. If I get below parallel, I can see my pelvis tilted in a bad way, and I feel it the day or two afterward. So if I have to really be careful, I haven't really worked out a great squat routine yet. The other, so that's what I've learned. And then as far as the exercises I do, uh, I really like Dr. Furlan's channel. She has some great advice for spinal stenosis. And one of the best pieces of advice she has is walking. She says, and I found this to be true, when you start increasing your distance, you're increasing by maybe a tenth of a mile a week or something like that. You don't jump from 1 mile to 3 miles in a couple of weeks. The progress, as you can see, and this is in miles a month here. The the miles a month increase was agonizingly slow at first, but you have to take it as it comes. And then when you're doing a mile and a half at a time, it's like, yes. And then up to 2 miles, and then it starts, but the increases are all small. And so she recommends that you keep track of it so you can see that you're increasing. And she also, the physical therapy that she prescribes, and which is much of what my physical therapist has prescribed, I do. So I think that's well worth uh, following. And then, yes, these are famous physical therapists. Uh, and I don't follow everything they say. They recommend not lifting weights at all, maybe doing a few bench presses. I lift anyway. But this idea, they give some good exercises here, and I found their crunch uh, to be very, very useful. As this other kind of crunch that's shown by Dr. Remy, I found very, very useful. And I also do some McKenzie's. Now, I know that's controversial for stenosis because this is typically a disc bulging exercise, but I do have bulging discs. I do them, but I brace and I do them in moderation. You're not going to see me on a yoga magazine doing a cobra because I only go up so far. So but I found the McKenzie's really do loosen my back. Now, as far as the stuff I have not worked out yet, as I told you, I haven't worked out my squat. The second thing I haven't worked out is swimming. I tried swimming in the summer of 2022, and I found that when I crawl, when you reach, my back goes into extension, and after a while, I start feeling the radiating pain. Radiculopathy, I think it's called, when it's due to the nerve root. And yeah, the symptom I think was neurogenic claudication. That's what I was getting when I was walking. When I tried to walk after swimming, it was kind of bad. And I know there's drills you can do to keep a neutral spine when you're doing the crawl stroke, but the amount of time I'd have to spend on the drills I can spend on walking. So for now, suspended swimming, I might try to add it back this summer, but I'll have to add slowly. The other thing I found is I could do a side stroke so long as I didn't overreach, so long as I kept my back from extending. So I think the side stroke work. The drills where you kick but keep your arms down at your side and roll side to side to breathe, that works. Anything where you have to lift your head, and that's probably part of my one of my stroke flaws is when I'm doing the crawl, rather than rolling to breathe, sometimes I get a little bit of head lift. And now open water, you need that sometimes to see where you're going. So I'm still working on that. I haven't uh, figured that out yet. The other couple of things I remark is pain pills. I was on 2 naproxen twice a day, or 4 naproxen tablets a day. I was encouraged by my doctor to stop, and in November 2022, I did. And I picked it up again when I got COVID in January, February 2023. But then when I recovered from COVID, I quit it, and I haven't been on painkillers of any kind. No, I mean a dose of 0 since then, and that's a real plus. Now I still make mistakes. I sometimes lose back discipline. That's why when I lift, I rarely try for a max, and on deadlifts, I never try for a max. I don't have the body discipline to keep a neutral back when I'm straining. And sometimes I might overreach when I'm doing something in the house, or sometimes I'll get hard-headed and do hilly courses too many times. I find that I can do hilly courses if I do a flat course the next day. If I alternate, I don't do too many hilly courses. I can hike, but if it's a hilly course, I should do a flat course the next day. But sometimes I do too much, and a little bit of the thing comes back, and I have to back off and do more exercises. And I find that stretching my hamstrings helps also. Now, the last thing I'll close with, and I'll go back to sharing the screen, is right here, I put all the exercises I do. Now, I put a link to where you can see the exercises being done properly by people who know what they're doing. I have no medical qualifications whatsoever. So I send you to physical therapists and all that who know what they're doing. And these are the routines I do, and I'll put a link to this in the link section. Finally, when doctor said, I thought for sure I was going to have surgery in 2022. Doctor said, no, you don't need it. Although he talked to me a little differently, this video here from a spine doctor is outstanding. He explains what surgery can do, what the risks are, and what you hope to get out of it. And based on that, I thought, well, I had a fantasy that if I got spinal fusion, I could be trying to deadlift 400 pounds again and doing marathons again. And no, that's not what surgery is about. So, so right now, the life I have, the quality of life I have, would have been a success had I had surgery, but I didn't. So it's even more of a success. And what my spinal surgeon told me is that if you get surgery, they might correct the spondylolisthesis at the L5, L4 level, but then other things start to get out of alignment after a while. And it leads to problems further up. And the further up you go, the closer to the spinal cord you go. Right? My problems are down at the nerve roots where they're somewhat manageable. So, maybe it's best not to to test my luck. So that is what I have, and I wish you luck. And I want to stress the thing that turned it around for me is competent physical therapy and competent medicine by qualified doctors. That's it. Thanks for watching.